I shot him 6 times.
What's going on, horror fanatics? Welcome to
I shot him 6 times!
YouTube Horror Movie Channel. As you know, I'm your host and creator of the channel, Marcus. If you have not done so already, please shoot this video a like. It helps out with the YouTube algorithm a ton. As well as if you're a new viewer to this channel, please shoot that subscribe button as well as that notification icon so you get all the latest content updates to the channel. As well as if you'd like to become a member to the channel, shoot over to the channel dashboard, shoot that join button and choose what level membership best works for you. Okay everyone, in this video I will be talking about Gale Weathers, the cheesy tabloid journalist who has yet to win the Pulitzer, a beloved legacy character in her own right who has been in all 6 Scream films. But over the course of the last few months, some friends of mine in the community, as well as seeing it pop up in conversations and other content creators' chat box, there has been a looming suspicion and theory that Gale Weathers could actually be a secret Ghostface, based on plausible points while discussing the theory. And after rewatching Scream 6, yet again, Richiekirsch's fan-made film paved the way for this theory to get a closer look. But before we get into that, let's take a quick detour, as this clue about Gale has a familiar reoccurrence. So in my first video breaking down these clues from Richie's fan film, I uncovered actual dialogue from Casey Becker from the quote-unquote real events in Woodsboro and proceeded to play the audio from Heather Graham's Casey Becker reenactment in Stab to prove the dialogue is not the same, and the only way Richie could know this dialogue would have to be from someone who was present in that moment in 1996. Once again, while watching the final act in the Shrine, I noticed that Richie's fan film actually has both versions, the quote-unquote real-life events dialogue and the Stab Films dialogue of Casey Becker's opening scene, further proving, in my opinion, that someone from 1996 has a connection with Richie. I'll play the audio clips for further clarification. Now, when I talk about a familiar reoccurrence, over the last couple of Scream videos, I've discussed how you also hear Stu Macher and Randy Meek's dialogue from 1996 that would not be in the Stab movie being in Richie's fan film to go along with Casey's. And you can now add both Dewey Riley and Gale Weathers to those listed names that have dialogue in Richie's fan film he should not have. I'm going to play the audio, then cut back in. Okay, so if you caught it, you can hear the line, "You are not scared, are you?" That line was said by Dewey Riley in the original Scream film when he asked Gale to go investigate a suspicious car in the bushes down the road that turned out to be Sidney Prescott's father, Neil's vehicle. But the most important part about that line is that Dewey, Gale, and Kenny the cameraman were the only ones present when those words were spoken. Both Dewey and Kenny are dead. That leaves Gale as the only one to know that line ever existed. Now, some will say, maybe she had that line inserted in the original Stab film because she was such a huge part of the film even existed because of her best-selling book, and you are not wrong at all to assume that. However, as I played earlier in the video with the 2 Casey Becker pieces of dialogue, the Scream and Stab dialogue are very different. Gale is also known to falsify facts about what actually happened. As we heard in Scream 2, she said in her book, Kenny the cameraman was gutted, when in reality, he had his throat slashed. So, you can also say she could also change the dialogue about what was actually said in certain moments, for the sake of ticket and book sales. Another thing to take note of as well is we only get quotes from the Casey, Billy, and Sidney characters for the Stab movie seen in Scream 2, meaning we will never know if that dialogue from Dewey was ever put in Stab, meaning it doesn't exist because we didn't see or hear it, like the previous 3 mentioned, only solidifying that Gale Weathers is the only one to know this piece of dialogue. So, how did Richie know this piece of dialogue? Was Gale secretly working with him and gave this to him for his fan film? Now, I'm not going to get ahead of myself and say that she was, but what I will say is that it's not a bad idea to think about when you look at it this way. Real quick, I want to give a shout out to Val's Views for bringing this to my attention some weeks ago during a phone conversation. In Scream 4, we see Gale has writer's block because there has been no Ghostface murders to solve or write about, and she is no longer in the limelight. As soon as the murders start up again, you see how happy Gale is that this is happening, just for the sake of having something to write about and something to profit from. Fast forward to Scream 6, after telling the girl she wants to catch the killer, Tara looks at her and says maybe, or maybe you're just worried that without Ghostface, you'll just fade away, to which Gale had this look on her face that you see here in the photo that seems that the comment really hit home to her. And rightfully so. The Stab phenomenon started because of her and her books, spawning more killers in the process, yet none of that has stopped the character from being who she is, no matter whose life it costs. And as Randy once said, she's an opportunist, meaning if there's a way she can keep writing and profiting while knowing there could be serious repercussions to come from it, she will at all costs. Dewey was killed, and yet she still went off and wrote a book about Richie and Amber and the murders they committed back in Woodsboro, after saying she wouldn't, while also slandering Samantha's name in the book in the process. What if Gale was the one, or should I say one of the creators, behind the Stab subreddit to reset everything back in motion? It's a viable question to ask in my opinion, given the dialogue I found in Richie's fan film in Scream 6 that only Gale would know about. These murders support her livelihood. Without them, she's yesterday's news, as was seen in Scream 4. So to avoid that ever happening again, it's not impossible to think this of the character, being she's the main reason outside of Roman Bridger everything played out the way it did. Also in 6, we see Gale be the first one to introduce everyone to the Ghostface Shrine, meaning she had been inside there before anyone else we had seen on screen. After going back and rewatching the film, I now question how Gale found the shrine so quickly and just overall in the first place, as it had only been a day to a day and a half roughly before finding out about the shrine, and how she finds out about the shrine conflicts with Bailey's story about the shrine being in Jason and Greg's names, the wannabe filmmakers who were killed at the beginning of the film. As Gale said, Jason and Greg themselves rented the space out using fake names. I honestly don't know what to believe. It's obviously a piece of writing that needed to be cleaned up, but it makes no sense because Bailey says in the reveal monologue that he rented the theater where he built the shrine in Jason and Greg's names, meaning, in my opinion, there is no way Gale could have found it under fake names, being Jason and Greg weren't even the ones to make the purchase. Kirby confirmed this by saying to Gale she went through their financials and didn't find anything, further poking holes in Gale's story about how she found the shrine. We also got the tease from Ghostface and Gale's chase scene about Gale being a killer would have been a good twist. It could be taunting, it could be foreshadowing. Only time will tell, but I'm really starting to understand why some believe in this theory. Now, someone will ask if Gale met Richie or was behind the Stab subreddit, then why would Bailey want her dead if he knew she had any involvement with Richie before 5, possibly giving him source material for his fan film? Or, if it wasn't any of the Baileys who attacked Gale as was claimed, then why would Gale be attacked? There are 5 ways how this works in my opinion. Number 1, none of the Baileys attacked Gale like was claimed in the film. Many of us have already poked pretty substantial holes in that claim. It could be someone else, not a part of the Baileys group of Ghostfaces. Number 2, Gale was there in Woodsboro when Richie was taken out by Sam, meaning in Bailey's own words, she and anyone else involved that night had to die. Number 3, if Gale is behind the Stab subreddit, and gave Richie this piece of source material, or any for that matter, there's a good chance Bailey didn't know of Gale's presence because she either was strictly communicating through the computer or met with Richie in private. Though Bailey helped build Richie's collection with him, he admits Richie's obsession with Stab was a little too dark for him, meaning, in my opinion, there's a chance he wouldn't have been deeply involved with Richie's plan to requel the original Stab film or create his fan film, meaning there's a chance he wouldn't have known about Gale's involvement. Number 4. If it wasn't the Baileys, whoever attacked Gale has another agenda for wanting her dead. We've seen in 5 and 6 with Dewey's death and Gale's attack, striking similarities in terms of style, the way they were killed and attacked in those scenes. That doesn't add up to the killers revealed, especially from a physicality standpoint. Number 5. Her attack scene was staged, and she's possibly working with whoever is behind the Stab subreddit. We also have to keep in mind, Gale tried to get a movie made for the Stab requel, or at least try to sell the rights. Though that did not happen, yet anyway, the fact she so quickly wrote the book and tried to get a movie made that would even showcase her own ex-husband Dewey's death, most likely in that film, shows, in my opinion, the cold-hearted storage shed where her heart should be. But most importantly, Gale is the one truly keeping the legacy of Ghostface alive by writing these books and attempting to have more movies made about them, further strengthening the cause to take a closer look at the character heading into Scream 7, where we hope and expect some epic secrets brought to light, as well as some epic reveals that will rock the foundation of the franchise, and a Gale Weathers mastermind reveal would certainly be one of them, in my opinion. Nonetheless, it is most likely Gale Weathers will never be turned into a mastermind Ghostface of any sorts. However, one thing is clear, somehow, someway, that piece of dialogue that Dewey spoke in that moment was relayed to Richie and placed in his fan film. And when you add on everything else I mentioned, in my opinion, these things only helps the growing whispers get louder that in Scream 7 we could get revealed Gale Weathers is a mastermind Ghostface. But okay everyone, that is it for this video. Leave a comment in the comment section below and let me know your thoughts on this piece of dialogue from Dewey showing up in Richie's fan film that only Gale would know about. Does this make you question Gale for the first time ever in the franchise? Or does this only add to the suspicion you may have already had for the character with some of the other moments of possible suspicion I spoke about in this video? Once again, this is
I shot him 6 times.
YouTube Horror Movie Channel. I'm your host and creator of the channel, Marcus. Be sure to follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Patreon. Thank you all for watching.